So you see that it is depth sorted behind, which is not what we want. Welcome back to Arcade. I am Super Tommy, and this is a series on creating a memory match game, like a memory game that you probably know with cards, but more like the one from Mario Party on the Nintendo 64. So now what we have set up in the last two parts is we have a moving character, and we have these boxes. And we're using depth sorting and arcade physics, phase 3 arcade physics, for them to collide with each other so that our player can't walk through the boxes, but he can walk behind and over. So now in this part, what we're going to do is when the player is near enough the box or touching the box, we're going to let them press space to select that box and open it. So let's start doing that. Let's close this terminal. So what we're going to do is add a collider between, we did that, the player and the box, so which is this collider here. We're going to add a callback. We're going to call, we'll just make this function first. Let's do that after these creates. How about that? Handle player, player box collide. Let's say that. And then so we have two objects here. And let's see, we'll figure out which one is which by trial and error. Handle box collide, we have no process callback, and then the context is this because our handle player box collide method is on this game scene. Okay, so now let's see. So we do know this much, that both of these are going to be arcade sprites. So phaser.physics.arcade.sprite. Okay, so now which one is the player and which one is the box? So console.dir, so object 1, and object 2. So console.dir is just another, it's a different way of doing console.log where you can better log out objects. So I think we saved that. So now let's hit. Okay, so they're both arcade sprites. Let's see if we can determine who is what. So this is a static body, right? We already see that. So now we know our boxes have static bodies. So the second one, right? Let's just double check. Yep, so this is going to be the box, and this is going to be the player. Let's delete these logs. So player, box. Now, there actually may be a heuristic that Phaser uses for us to know which object is being given to us first or second. I'm not exactly sure I know what the heuristic is, so I just log it out and check to confirm what I'm given. Now, the good thing is, once you know what this is, it is always that case. Maybe it matters that which one of these is the first object or second, but I'm not entirely sure. So I just do it by actually testing. But it is deterministic, so however it comes in one time, it comes like this every time. So that's good. But there may actually be a heuristic, maybe somewhere in the docs that I have not seen. Okay, so now we have this box. So if the box is able to be selected, we should make it green or something like that so that the player knows that they can touch it. So what we're going to do is set a class property called ActiveBox to denote which box is currently active. So once you've touched it, it's active until you go far enough away from it for it to become no longer active. So let's go up here. We're going to add another class property here. We're going to call this ActiveBox. And what we're going to do is phaser.physics.arcade.sprite. That is what a box is. That is a reference to the currently selected box. So this .activeBox equals box. Now, if we already have an active box, so like we've selected a box and we haven't picked a new one or unpicked the current one, we're actually going to do nothing. So that we don't end up picking two different boxes, constantly changing them for whatever reason. So we're going to just do this. And we now need to know when the player has left the box. So let's just go here. So box, let's do this .activebox.setFrame, right? So we're going to set frame, I'm going to make it green. And to do that, so this is 10, so this is 9. We're going to make it the green box. So set 9. I'll just show you how this works. So now it's green. Okay, so now what we need to know now, it is selected, the active box is set, is if the player leaves, like if it's here or even here, it should no longer be selecting this box. But if it's close enough, it just touched it, maybe it moved a little bit, still pressing space should open this box. So now, how do we know when the player is no longer colliding or within the range of the box? We're just going to use the distance formula. It'll be very similar, simple, and we're going to do this in update. But see, this update method is getting kind of long, so let's add another method here. We'll call it update active box. Now, if active box is null or undefined, we're going to do nothing because there's no active box to act on. But if there is an active box, what we're going to do is check the distance between the active box and the player. So distance phasor.map, I think it's here, .distance, .between. So we're going to do distance between x1, y1, x2, y2, so which give it two different positions. So we're going to do this .player.x, this .player.y, and this .activeBox.x, this .activeBox.y. So now we'll have the distance. Now, if the distance is less than, let's say 64, we're going to do nothing because it's still close enough to be considered an active box. But if it is 64 or greater, what we're going to say is this active box is now undefined. So we no longer have an active box. And before we do that, we're going to set our active box, the frame, back to 10. So back to the silver image. And the last thing, let's call it here. This .update active box. So now while we're here, let's just clean up this a little bit. Let's make an update player. Just breaking these out into different methods. It's just one way of organizing code. It's not the only way, but it is better than having everything in one gigantic method. This .update player. Let's just paste that in here. Okay, so here, selected, not selected, selected, not selected. So it's working, right? That's our selecting the active box and then unselecting them. Good. Cool. All right, so that's working. So now how are we gonna know which item is in each box? We haven't defined that, but we don't know if it's a bear, chicken, duck, or whatever. So let's just make an array up here. We're going to call this level. It's going to define basically what is in this level. So we're going to make a 2D array. So let's say 0 is the bear, and then 1, 2, 3, etc. is the other animals. And so it's going to be 1 to 3, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 to 4, and then 0. So that's 5 things, right? Yep, that makes sense. Is that true? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay, so let's actually say this is 1, this is 0, let's say this is 3. So that's the first row. So this will correspond to this. We're just representing our boxes and what's in them as a 2D array. And let's say this is 2, let's say this is 4, let's say this is 1. And then, so now let's say this is 3, let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's say 4 and let's say 2. Right, there we go. So that's all the possibilities, and bear is going to be 0. So back in create boxes, what we're going to do is when we create the box, we are going to put some data into each one of our boxes. So now instead of using this 3 literal, we're going to use level.length. So that is the number of rows. And then for number of columns, it'll be level at that row dot length. So now our boxes made will be determined by however we make this level. So you could, change some of these values and make it a 4x3 or a 4x4 grid. We're gonna leave it 3x3, and here's our box. Here's the offset, and we're gonna do set data. Right? Every phaser game object, as long as the data manager is on it, has a set data and get data method that you can store arbitrary data that is key-based. Well, I guess you can do an object too. We're going to use keys. So what we're going to do is call this item type. You could call it animal type if you want. And then it's going to be level row column, right? So that's the integer, the number here, 103241342, whatever the number is, we're going to put it into our box at the key item type with that number. And then later, when we're going to bring it up, we're going to get this value and then produce the correct sprite to show. So now we've done that. Now let's go to, this is update active box. Okay. So here, the player, this is that. Okay, so now here, let's say space just pressed. So we want to do this when space is pressed. So phaser.physics.input.keyboard.just, let's say just up, this dot cursors dot space. So if the space button was just pressed, we want to open the box. So let's add another here method in our class called openBox. We're going to give it a box. So we could also just assume ActiveBox is the box, but let's just give it a box. It would make this method a bit more reusable if we want to open other boxes for any other reason. Phaser.physics.arcade.sprite. That's what box is. Now, if for some reason you're calling this method but with no box, we're just going to do nothing. This is just a matter of safety. And we'll put the logic to open the box here, but here let's go, if we're pressing space, this dot open box. And we're going to give it the active box. Now we could add another guard here, realistically, if space just pressed and not this dot active box. And this dot active box. So if space pressed and there is an active box, we're going to say this open box active box. And we're checking again here, so it may not be necessary, just depends on how safe you would like your code to be. Okay, so that's the box. So this dot, nope, I just say box, box.getData, and we called it item type. Let's put it in here, item type. Now let's just log it, console.log, item type. Now let's just see. So we know the bear is up top. Let's just see. If we get a 0, we do. And this was something else, a 4. Okay, so we know that is right. So what we want to do is show a different image depending on what item type. So let's do a switch item type. So case 0, we're calling 0 the bear, right? So let's see what we want to do here. Let's make another group. So we're going to use a group to create different sprites. And we're using a group mostly because, not for collision this time, but just because you can have 2 up, and then we can reuse those 2 without having to make a new sprite, since we will be, so like you pick 2, they may or may not match, and then they'll hide. If they do match, they'll stay. You can pick another 2, they may or may not match. So if we reuse the sprites, we'll at maximum only ever create 8 sprites, actually, I think. That's how that will end up being. Since when you pick the bear, it always goes away. So let's make another group here. And we're going to call it items group. So you call it animals group. So phaser.gameobjects.group. This will just be a normal group, no physics. It's not going to collide with anything. Items group. And So I just know this ahead of time that I'm going to want to do this. Let item, I'm going to declare this here and then set them in each case, because we're going to want to do some things to every single item that we create. So this dot, no, yeah, this dot items group dot get. Now we're going to get it at the box xy, box.x, box.y. So we're not going to set the key. Now we could set the key like bear here, for example, but because our items will be reused, it will behoove us to actually do set, no, get any, of course. I believe we can actually do this. So let's just type this, and it's going to be a phaser.gameObjects, let's just say sprite, and then I believe I can do some frame. Yep, not set frame, set texture. And let's say bear. Now we haven't loaded a texture called bear yet, so now let's do that before we forget. Back in preloader.js, we loaded our Sokoban sprites, but we need to load each one of our images. So let's say bear, and its textures, bear.png. So bear.png. So now let's just do this for the rest of them. Chicken, chicken, and then duck, 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 parrot. So we got to do for each one of the images we're going to load, we need to put them here. This will be the last one, the penguin, and penguin.png. Okay, so now we've loaded all of them. We can collapse this again. Let's go back to our game. That's where this bear key is from. This bear key corresponds to this bear key, so we're going to do the same for the rest of them. Okay, so case one. Now we can just basically decide ourselves what we want it to be. So this dot items group dot get. So you will see that this is going to basically be the same. The only thing that's different is this set texture. And so now I'm just thinking out loud here, if there's a better way to set this up. Now the thing is, of course, item type could be something that's that we don't support. So you think about it. For now, let's just set these for each one. So we have chicken. So now let's just follow this way. So duck, parrot, penguin. It doesn't have to be this order. It could be whatever you want. You're basically defining a number to match a bird type. Parrot, case 4, and penguin. 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 Break. Okay, so in this case, item, if not item, so it could be undefined. If for some reason we got number 5, let's say you accidentally typed in 5 in your level, then what? We don't have anything, an item is null, so we're going to do nothing. You could throw an error that says like unknown item type, so that you know to fix that you put in some bad data and you should go fix it. Okay, so because we're using groups here, we know we will have to hide them. Okay, I'm not going to do that right now. We'll see when we do it that what we'll have to do is set active and set visible on our item. And so now we have our item. Let's tween it up. So this dot tweens dot add. So targets, we're going to add a tween on our item. And actually, we're going to tween up on Y, scale, and alpha. So item.scale, we're going to start at 0 scale. And item.alpha, we're going to start at 0 as well. So our target is item. We are going to go Y minus equals 50. We're going to go up 50. Alpha, we are going to go to 1. And scale, we are going to go to 1. Now duration, let's just say half a second. And let's just say that's it. That's when we pick. So we pick. Let's see, item, active box. Once we picked a box, it should probably no longer be active, right? That seems to make sense. So this dot active box undefined. Can that read property get? Oh, yes. So we need to actually set our items group. Let's just do this. This dot items group, this dot add, this dot add dot group. So you see that it is depth sorted behind, which is not what we want, right? These animals should have no depth sort, so they're always on top. And do more. There's the bear, right? So these are all good. You can get this box from the behind it. That looks good. And we don't have any matches yet, but now we're showing the things out of the box. So what we're going to do in the next video, we are going to remove the depth sort for these items specifically. And then we're going to pick two, and if they don't match, we're going to hide them and also get rid of this green coloring of our box, no longer selected.